oil and gas to take care of us for a long, long time, and of course with coal too. And you know, if we do those things, I'm convinced that this economy would take off. And the real issue is here, we cannot cut enough to get us out of the hole. We can't raise taxes, that would go the opposite direction. We have to grow the economy, get more money coming in that way, and get our spending under control. And that's how we get out of this mess. And that's how we strengthen, and if we accomplish that, a lot of things will fix themselves. Medicare and Social Security will fix themselves. And I'm just really disgusted with this, the Democrats and the administration saying it's the Republicans that are destroying Medicare and Social Security. Last August, the Medicare trustees and the Congressional Budget Office came out and they said doing nothing, Medicare, 9 to 12 years, it's gone. Because the baby boomers, and 10,000 people are retiring a day, and also the cost of health care is still going up. Obamacare didn't fix that. The good thing is, well, that's just a good thing, that was the wrong thing to say. We did repeal Obamacare in the House, of course it died. We did succeed in two things on Obamacare, at least two things. We got the 1099 provisions repealed. That's because if you're a business, and let's say you're just a small business here in Brunswick, and you go down at the Dunkin' Donuts and buy donuts every day and coffee for your dozen employees, that means you spend over $600 a year. You have to file a 1099 to Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, it's just a terrible paperwork, it's a nightmare. And then 2 weeks ago, or this was 2 weeks ago now, we did repeal the Class Act. Class Act was a long-term care, Obamacare. There was no funding for it. It was just, even Kathleen Citarellis, or whatever her name is, admitted it wasn't going to work. Yeah, and then let's see if something else I was saying there. Well, just disaster. So Obamacare's got to go away because it's going to bankrupt states. One thing, the Obamacare, you don't hear too many people talk about it. What's it called? The Independent Payment Advisory Board. I think it's 15 people, bureaucrats, that will determine if you get health care, if you get treated or not. And if you're, example, if you're 72 years old or whatever, and you need bypass or a hip replacement, under that plan you might not get it, because, they'll do cost-benefit analysis. Which I think their cost-benefit analysis in this case will be different than Lisa Jackson's and US EPA, because I asked her, you love this, I said, does the EPA do any cost-benefit analysis when they put all these new rules? Oh, yes, we do, Congressman. I said, would you explain that a little bit? Well, if the new rule is going to cost X amount of dollars, we know that. But then how we figure the benefit is, if we do this new rule, maybe an X amount of people won't get asthma, and so we put a number on that. So, pull out of the sky here, from iCloud. I mean, anybody's going to, when a cost-benefit analysis, you just pull the numbers out. But that's kind of how they do it. She said her number one concern was health and the environment. And now, what I tell her, and I've told Nancy Stoner, her assistant on head of water, I said, when you layer on more red tape, more burdensome costs, onerous regulations, you're going to risk, you're going to push the environment, protection of the environment the wrong way. And I give you two examples. I've done this several times in the committee. And so the first example I give, I used to raise a bunch of hogs, okay? And the years the hog market went south, I was a farmer, okay? When the years the hog market went south, our number one priority was staying in business, paying the employees, paying the bills, and getting through the downturn. The years we were making some money, we could think about doing things out in the farm, like improve a waterway, things that would be environmental friendly, because you had the resource. I said to her, just like this, I said, if you don't get that, I said, look at the third world countries. They got environmental disasters because they don't have the resources to build water and sewage treatment plants, And so, one thing I say everybody, hopefully everybody, I know there might be a few people that don't get this, but everybody wants clean water and clean air. And businesses and everybody, they want to do the right thing. But if you're piling on so much garbage on them, at some point they throw their hands up and they say, why bother? And they don't have the resources to do what we need to do. And it's unbelievable to me, those people in Washington D.C. do not get that. They do not get that. They think that, you're not paying enough taxes, and we take more from you than we'll have it. And they're pretty good at wanting to spend other people's money. So anyways, those 4 things, I think, accomplished, and get this economy going, and that puts these other programs on solid footing with reforms. We have to reform those entitlement programs because they're out of control. And, you know, unemployment's totally out of control. We've been going all night about that. But anyways, you know, we're in the 11th hour. If we don't get this changed, and you know, I heard, I think it's pretty true, there's only been like 3 times in the last 100 years where one party has had absolute control. And what I mean by absolute control, obviously, is having the White House, the House, and the Senate. But absolute control is having a filibuster-proof Senate, 60 votes, okay? And 3 times were, and Steve might correct me here because he's the historian, I know, but FDR, the New Deal, Lyndon Johnson, the Great Society, and Barack Obama, and Obamacare. And we really need a wave election because to really reverse things, we really need to do that. But yeah, no, I'll quit talking. Let's do questions.
Yes. Pertaining to what you're saying, my opinion of education in public schools stinks. The young people and the ones in school, plus some of their parents, are not educated enough to know what they're doing when they go to the polling. They don't know the background of the people that are going to vote for. And is there anything anybody can do about getting rid of the Department of Education in Washington? We should run our own area schools. We should have something to say. The people, parents, grandparents should run their local schools.
I agree. I think that education should be more of a state issue and local issue. And you know, let states do their thing, and if one state's doing better than another state, that's, you know, our founding fathers kind of wanted competition between states, and it makes things better. There's there might be a couple programs that the federal government's doing, but I would think those could be merged in, you know, another area and not have a whole department. So it's kind of funny. I've been told by my campaign people over the years that don't talk about that because the NDAA will come out and kill you. Well, the hell with them.
When we have an over-unionized education union in our public school teachers group, some of you can't talk. I've dealt with one who had 4 credit cards to make the down payment on a tractor. Now, I would think a teacher is not that stupid.
Let me, North Ogden in mind, I want to address on this. One way to help improve our education system is increase competition. And I've always been a strong proponent for charter schools and vouchers. And when I was in the state senate about 3 years ago or so, I served in the state senate education committee, and I'll never forget this. You know, some things in happen in your life you don't forget. And I'm never going to forget this. There was some high school kids from the city of Dayton that came in and testified for the committee. They were African American, okay? They had their previous lives, which was, you know, a year or 2 before, they were having all kinds of problems. You know, they of course they didn't have any support at home life, you know, family life, didn't know families, broken families, and all that. And what happened in Dayton, apparently the lady that was testifying with him was a teacher, and she got the blessing of the school board in Dayton to start a charter school, okay? And these kids went into this new charter school, and they turned their lives around. And these kids are going to be productive citizens, and they were just great to hear. But if they were forced to stay in the Dayton city schools, they would probably end up in the prison system at some point, you know. And so, one way, you know, is competition's a good thing, and I think that's one way we fight some of that, and that's why our side of the aisle has been so supportive of charter schools and vouchers and that. And so that's what I'm saying now. Yeah.
We can't balance a checkbook.
Okay.
EPA did, if I'm not mistaken, did declare milk a hazardous substance, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just passed a bill, I think it's Christy Noam's, I'm a co-sponsor, that, you know, and dust, I think it was tied into a dust bill on agriculture in rural areas to reverse that.
If I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but the government takes $1.1 trillion out of the economy in taxes, but $1.7 trillion in regulations, and it's growing by the week.
I'm sorry.
And I never see that anywhere.
We had a big deal. We, in the House, we passed the RAINS Act, which I'm a co-sponsor, and I did some press, and I know a lot of others did. And since you mentioned the number, it's one point, almost $2 trillion of the annual cost of regulations. And right now, the Obama administration, their own admission, if I remember my numbers right, have over 200 regulations in the pipeline that will, in aggregate, easily exceed $100 billion, if I remember the number. It's at least that. And so the RAINS Act says any proposed regulation being promulgated or whatever that costs the U.S. economy across the country over $100 million has to come back to Congress for an up or down vote. Okay? Now, technically that shouldn't be necessary. First of all, the Senate's not taking it up. That's one of the 30 bills. But technically it shouldn't be necessary because Congress has the power to step in and override a federal agency anyways.
Well,
But the problem, and that was actually done when Clinton was president. But the problem is, the Senate isn't gonna do anything. That's the problem.
I have one more.
Yeah.
On this military appropriation bill, the
National Defense Authorization Act.
Defense Authorization Act, can the military hold a U.S. citizen?
No.
Okay.
Dallas?
I actually only have about 6 copies.
Oh, okay.
yeah, there was a lot of going on about saying that U.S. citizenship thing, yeah. I read what Alan West wrote, and he said,
Yay, Alan
absolutely,
West.
Alan West, he said, absolutely not, you could not hold U.S. citizen.
That's right. You know, that was a great guy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't
I
know
love
him
that
pretty
guy.
good. We spent some time in
Yeah,
Miami.
sticker on.
Okay. Okay, here's the section. And I don't know, well, let me tell you. It's section, I can't see it. Yeah, you know. Okay, 1020, 1021, 1022, okay? And I'm gonna read the excerpts that addresses your part. First of all, the National Defense Authorization Act was to fund our troops, okay? So, pretty important bill from that aspect, but that's not what the issue we're talking about. It says here, nothing in this section shall be construed to affect the existing law or authorities relating to the detention of United States citizens. And then it goes on here to say, applicability to United States citizens. It says, United States citizens, requirement to detain a person in military custody under this section does not extend to citizens of the United States.
Commissioner Hall, that was the form that was signed by the president, that is the
Yeah, this is the fine, this is the actual
Okay, see,
law.
that's what people are saying, that that was not the form that got signed by the president.
No, this is it. This is it. There was a lot of stuff floating around.
Yeah, there was.
And one thing that's kind of frustrating to me in this job, there's a lot of things, you go out on the internet, somebody puts things out on the internet, bloggers and stuff, and they go viral and they're gospel. And I get some, I just get a simple example. I just was down in Mount Vernon the other night, and I left this guy give me a piece of paper, a letter, and he called all of members of Congress were elites because we don't have to abide by the laws, we don't abide by Obamacare, we don't pay Social Security, and everything he listed was 100% wrong. We pay Social Security, and I don't know, this is kind of interesting, I gotta find out, when I got home this week, I had a letter from the House Administration Office that said that how much we can deduct for living and food expenses as members of Congress while we're in Washington DC, and it said the total amount's $3,000. I'm gonna check into this because when I was in the General Assembly, we deducted a lot more than $3,000. And so I don't know if there's a carve out for Congress that goes the other way. And then the issue on the reporting our financial stuff, we're the only body, really, well, some of our employees, that have to annually report our assets, more so at the state level, we get at the state level. Have to report, now we pass the bill every 30 days when we sell or buy stock, have to report that. You can go online and see how much stock I own, you get ranges, and what companies I own. So that, these people come on here, it's just frustrating to me because they say that like we're all a bunch of crooks and, you know, I've been here
On
lately.
that line,
Yep.
just real quickly, is it true though, that you can serve 2 years in Congress and have a pension for
No,
lifetime?
5 years.
No,
Well, 5 years, how many years do you have to serve to have a pension?
I really don't know.
I think it's 5 years.
I can't figure out, the pension deal that I pay, they got one good program, they got they call it a thrift plan, it's a 401K. That is a good deal, I pay in and they match up to 5%, that would be kind of private sector, it's actually a 401K.
It's private sector, I don't care.
Yeah, that's similar. Now, the pension right now, they take out a small amount of my pay, and what I've been told, that they're paying 1.7%, which is a small amount. As a state employee, or on the state system, I paid in 10%, and state taxpayers are paying 14%. That's one hell of a big pension, okay? Now, there were some things going on prior to 1984 that some of this, I think that's where the confusion is, because I think Congress had a lot of good deals, okay? And I was told, the reason you're seeing a lot of retirements being announced for this year, because the ones that have been there for more than 20 years are gonna get full health benefits if they retire this year. If they stay on, they're not gonna get them. So some of this stuff has changed. And then I was also told that there's only a handful of members in Congress, House and Senate, that were there now, are still here from prior to 1984. And I've been told that those handful are denying not taking the change. They're taking the change. They're not gonna be grandfathered voluntarily. So that's all I know, but this other issue, I just haven't checked all that much into it. But I do know the bill we're proposing in the House to help fund the payroll tax cut, and also the transition for getting us on the transportation to the energy stuff, is freezing all federal workers' pay, plus May can pay in, I think it's 6% towards their pension. So we're actually increasing that, ourselves. Yep.
Congressman, I'm going to go back to the education issue. I agree, we've got problems with public education. Unions are a big problem, no doubt about that. Equally as big a problem, and one we never hear talked about, nobody seems to want to touch, is that I always say that our public schools, we teach what the best of the colleges send us. So where does the problem lie? If you want to change it, you got to get back to the root of the problem. We need to look at the teacher education programs in our colleges and universities.
That's a good point.
Too much time spent on methods type courses and so forth, not enough on content. Probably, I don't know this figure exactly, but I'm going to say a majority of students who go through college never take a course in basic economics.
I think you're right, and I think
We need to go back and look at those training.
yeah, I agree with you, and I think the states really ought to be looking at that more than the federal government. Because the states, hold on a second, it's our public universities, like in the state of Ohio, there's a lot of state tax dollar money going to all our public universities.
You probably know Dr. Lucille Ford, actually.
Yes, yeah.
She and I worked for years to try to get the state to require that all of our graduating seniors have a basic course in economics. The State Department of Education finally said, well, every school has to offer, but nobody has to pay. Well, economics isn't something kids are going to choose over basket weaving or flower making.
No, I agree, yeah.
What can you tell us about the agency outfit would be a fast and furious?
Oh, gee.
Well, I'll tell you, one thing, Speaker Boehner's pushing all the committee chairs, have oversight hearings, like I said, I'm doing. Darrell Issa, the big oversight committee, that has subpoena power, they're going after it, okay? Fast and Furious, Solandra, 500 billion, that's billion, I had to think for a second to get these numbers. 500 billion, and we're seeing some other money, there's battery plant in Indiana, some other things. Pardon? Yeah, there's some, I know there's some in the last couple of weeks. On this, I think it's Solandra one, they're trying to, no, it's Fast and Furious, because Eric Holder, they've been subpoenaing documents, and I think I saw the deadline, I think it's next week. I think I saw that if they don't supply them, they'll be in contempt of Congress. And so we're building up, you gotta do due diligence.
Bring them up on charges is what you need to do.
I know, but you gotta go through the process first and build your case and get there. And keep in mind, we're not gonna get any help from the Senate, so this is all House. And so, but at the very least, we should hopefully expose all this crap in the electorate and let the people see what's going on, you know, because doing the criminal thing, I don't know where we head. You know, I know we're working on it, and they're pushing hard, and they have put out publicly that if those documents don't show up, they'll be in contempt of Congress, and so whatever the next step is. Yeah.
Congressman, you were speaking about the EPA, and just recently in Brunswick, and I'm assuming this is all in Medina County, we got a tax that's $14 or $15 on our refuse bill that we get for garbage pickup for EPA mandates, and it was kind of presented in the Post as water runoff from rain in your driveways and sidewalks. Now, I'm kind of ignorant of what happens here, but the water from that goes into the storm sewers, which runs to the lake or the rivers or wherever. It's not treated. What is this money being spent for? That somebody should investigate where this money is. It's an EPA mandate. Fine. Where's it go? What's it used for?
Well, the county commission might give some more information on that.
Although it wasn't the county commissioners that did it, I'll point this out, okay? It was Brunswick City set up as what's called a stormwater utility. Other communities throughout the state, under state law, are allowed to define an area that has a benefit and set up what's called a utility that then they can charge on the basis of the impervious surfaces or the runoff. And the intent is to, and for Brunswick, and I'm not defending one way or the other, but as I understand it, they're using the money to pay for stormwater improvements that they made several years ago that had no funding. And they were anticipating all along that they were going to have to do some kind of stormwater utility. As you know, Bob Sinkowski left as city manager, and council was faced with an issue of like, how do we pay for the things that we've already authorized to construct? And so they were essentially forced to enact that utility. Like I said, I'm not defending it one way or the other, but it is used just for the system of stormwater, and largely it's flood. It's flood damage prevention. The problems, you know, in Brunswick historically have been a lot of floods. We have peak periods. We have areas flood, and council chose to go through and make those improvements, and then put out debt. And in order to start paying off that debt, they initiated the stormwater utility. And as you point out, probably not very well advertised. They didn't do a very good job explaining it to the people, nor even seek their vote before imposing it.
They don't turn it down, that's why.
Well, that's what, well, like I said, I'm just a resident, and just aware of that this is what was going on, okay?
That explains what the stormwater utility is. When they just say stormwater utility,
Well, they have, it is a separate item. It's a separate item budget. You can go to city council or up to the city manager, Jim Lucas, a good guy. He's managing it. They can show you the projects that they paid for, how that money is used. It has to be kept as a separate fund. It can't be used for other purposes other than stormwater
so that
management.
money's staying locally.
Oh yeah, it doesn't go anywhere, but there are EPA mandates. There's the NPDS, the National Pollution Elimination Discharge System, that all the municipal areas have had to comply with, as well as the county. We've been able to manage it without increasing it and creating a utility in the county. But local units like Brunswick chose to, obviously, they decided to deal with the flood issue as well as the water quality issues that are involved in that. Okay, hopefully that answers.
Yes.
I heard Governor Jindal last couple weeks, after Katrina, they went with charter schools. They don't have a public school system like they used to. Graduation rate's gone up, all that other stuff has gone up. Healthcare, I'm a nurse for 43 years. I don't see how it can be fixed other than truly getting rid of the attorneys. We cannot draw blood without the fear of a lawsuit behind us. Nurses are now independently sued. You're getting students out of colleges that have never touched a patient because the instructors are fearful of being sued if they make a mistake. I could go on about healthcare after 43 years. My biggest complaint is the reason why Democrats and Republicans can't get along. I'm not saying you, I think we've got Rubio, Manchin, Allen West is the top of my list. We've got great guys getting in there. But I watch C-SPAN and I'm ready to shoot the TV. I cannot believe that they call this debating. We have Republicans up there debating, and I've not seen a debate like that in my life. They're not debating. They're not talking about the issues. Ryan,
Well, wait, let me,
You know, I mean,
let me say, the thing I'm seeing on the Democrat side, they don't bring their plan forward.
No,
And-
no.
And almost all the time, we end up debating with ourselves, and that's the problem.
and you know, that, we're not gonna get anywhere. And I'm not saying anything about you. I
Yeah,
think
no,
that we
I
got great
understand.
guys.
We're
Coming
frustrated,
up.
believe me.
I mean, you take the same oath of office, I swear, to abide by the Constitution. And I listen to these people up there, and these are the people that have been there 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. That have cheated us. Look at what happened in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Now, is this just a Cleveland issue with Tamora? I doubt it. It's a Republican, it's a Democrat. He just happened to be the one that got caught.
And you notice what earlier I said.
Really? I'm
that
serious.
There's things you can blame both sides of the aisle on, and that's why,
Right.
we're trying to fix the Honest Budget Act is one of those. And one thing I wanted to say in the Honest Budget Act, a big problem in budgeting is that everything's an emergency,
Yes.
okay? And you might have saw Henry Waxman on C-SPAN this last week. It was unbelievable. He said that the unemployment, this is an emergency, we need to pay for it, declare an emergency, it doesn't matter, because what we said that, well, let me back up, I want to talk a little bit about the payroll extension just for a second, because it's terrible policy, okay? But that's the cards we were dealt from Nancy Pelosi's Congress, and we lost that fight in December, that 60 days, but in my 10 years of elected office, this is probably the worst public policy I've ever seen that has the most support. It's just incredible. So what we said, the politics were that it's gonna get extended, okay? Even though I think we need to do real tax reform, real tax cuts, not rob the cash flow from Social Security and Medicare. So what we said is, if we're gonna do this, then we gotta pay for it. That's what we're fighting over now. And we did pass out of the House there in December before you heard all about it. A 1-year extension on the payroll tax cut, 1 year in unemployment with some revisions in here. By the way, Jim Renacci had some of those initiatives in there to reform the unemployment mess program. And also a 2-year fix to the doc fix, okay? And then they wanted to do the 60 days. Now, they're talking about wanting to do just another 60 days. So what the Democrats are doing, they want to politicize this, and every 60 days, or continuously, have this fight to the election. So,
Okay, I've been in nursing 43 years, I started in '66. And this is not you, any reason why they've not closed the borders for the drugs? I mean, I've seen since the mid-'80s, I've been kicked at, spit at, peed on, crapped on, you name it, broken ribs from drug addicts and alcoholics in the emergency room. It's appalling now in the state of Ohio, we've got that bill for doctors. They can't prescribe for pain, they're being watched, so that's a whole nother issue I don't even want to get into, but, the borders,
we have to secure.
the drugs,
We have to secure borders.
and stop the drugs.
It's not just drugs, it's terrorists.
Well,
Right there.
yeah. Yeah.
Steve, you got a comment?
I certainly want to applaud the Republican Congress regarding the highway reauthorization. Look at the gas tax revenues, as well as find more creative ways, particularly the development, using the royalty development public land, and essentially coming up with a reauthorization bill that lives within the money. And I really do appreciate that. That being said, what are the chances that the Democratic Senate are going to actually do anything with that? I totally agree with you. The continuing resolution, that uncertainty is killing us.
It's killing us.
It's killing us in terms of what we can plan projects and so forth, and Ohio particularly. how are we gonna, we've got billions of dollars of needs out there. We can't develop a plan until we know what's best.
Absolutely, and I can't answer what the Senate's gonna do. I mean, I'm not that optimistic about, you know, they're gonna do the right thing. They're dead set on this 2-year bill, which is not funded, okay? So it's a joke.
Will something be worked out in conference then, you think? Did ultimately both sides agree they need to have a reauthorization, even though it's not, obviously what the.
Well, the conference is the procedure, the way it's supposed to work, when the two houses, you know, two bodies don't agree. It's hard to say what the Democrats will do in conference. We saw what they're doing on the payroll tax cut. You know, it's probably more than 50% likely they'll go for CRs.
Shut it down.
Let me talk about the shut down.
There's what you do.
We came within 90 minutes of shutting down the government back in, I guess, April 8th, 9th. Now, hold on a second, let me explain this. You know, we can all feel good, okay, but here's some of the consequences. Just think through this for a second. When they shut down the government within 95, or I don't know, 20-some days, where it was, most of the, at least half of the appropriation bills were done, okay? So some things wouldn't have got shut down because the money was already appropriated. In this case, 0 appropriation bills were done, okay? We started hearing on, I think it was April 8th, it was a Thursday, the day before the shutdown was coming, from military personnel and their families. And because apparently the military sent out an email to all their service people that said apparently they must get paid twice a month, on April 15th. And they said, you'll get paid to April 9th and you won't get paid. And obviously when this government would start up, they'd probably get retroactive pay. But the problem is cash flow for them. Making their rent payments or mortgage payments. And we're fighting 2 wars. That would have been a shame to put our military in that position. And I co-sponsored a bill to say that the military is taken care of regardless of what we do, okay? So we had that issue, okay? Now, hold on a second. The second issue, and I think that come to light in December, when we went through that boo-ha-ha or the payroll tax cut, and we stood up and said, no, we're going to go to conference. We had every right to go to conference. That's how the process is supposed to work. We got annihilated in the public opinion. We were getting killed. And that's why they had to go to the UC, Pacific Ranger Day, because we were just getting killed. And here's the challenge. We have to get as much as we can get. Okay, it's not, hasn't been perfect. So you can't have it perfect and not end up, you know, the bad to the common good. So here's what I'm trying to say. We try to get as much as we can get. It's not as much. It's not enough as I would like. It's not as much as Alan West wants or anybody else. But we have to be really careful that we don't embolden the President of the United States and strengthen his position. And we did strengthen him. We had that brouhaha in December. And what I'm hoping happens on the transportation bill, this could be a really interesting thing to watch this next week. We better have 218 Republicans, hopefully 240 Republicans vote for that transportation bill. It's a bill that gives more rights back to the states, no earmarks, no taxes. It's in the Constitution. That's a federal responsibility. It's called post roads in the Constitution. If we don't pass that with the 218 majority of Republicans, we just strengthen the Democrats in the Senate, and we gave them more clout to pass their nonsense. We weaken our hands. So my point when I was saying we got to be united. Not everything's been perfect, but if we're not united, we strengthen their hand. And the last thing we want to do, because the end goal here is to make Barack Obama a one-term president, and that's what we're trying to do. And so, I know there's some things that happened in last year that we didn't all like. Okay, we didn't get as much as we wanted, but we did do some things. You don't hear them talking about card check anymore. We stopped their agenda. Here you have the President of the United States come to the State of the Union and not mention his two big, in his opinion, would be his two big legislative successes, the stimulus and Obamacare. Not one mention, okay? And we have changed the culture somewhat, because before this Congress got there, the culture was how much more should they spend to stimulate the economy? Keynesian economic theory. Now it's been more how much should we cut? And so we've made some progress there, but we need more reinforcements. Okay, you've had your hand up a lot.
Yeah, just going back to the one question about the budget there. Could you just like introduce a bill saying, until a budget is passed, the Senate and the President don't get paid? 'Cause I'm really getting tired of paying people for not doing their jobs.
Doing nothing. Yeah.
I mean, just put, you probably won't get it, but at least they'll say, look, the House did it, and we're working, we're doing what the people want. Say, look, and when it does get passed, they don't get retroactive pay.
My resident historian here said that's a constitutional prohibition. Voice-
27th Amendment says that the pay can't be varied during the term of office.
That's absolutely right, yeah. The 27th Amendment, that does say that. Thanks for reminding me of that. We can't raise or lower our pay during the term of office. Yeah.
Some of us got an email this week that says the Tea Party's dead,
Yeah.
and that, I think that was an attention getter, but it was saying that we did all our woo-ha-ha, marching on Washington and letting our constituents know what's going on in government and catching up already, yada, yada. But what I really think all of us want to know is what can we do to assist you or assist the process?
Well,
It's, you know, we had issues and we petitioned and we did all of that, and now what?
I think what's really important is the Tea Party, all us conservatives, and, you know, we need to stick together. And some of it's been a challenge because there's been some splintering off because, like I said, it hasn't been perfect. We haven't got everything we wanted. And I know there's some people, they thought if we shut the government down, we fix the problem. And that was a big gamble because I said we could have happened what happened in December, and we just reelected Barack Obama. And that's the fine line we're trying to walk. And now I don't know, Barack Obama might have just gave us a nice thing here with the freedom of religion with the contraceptive thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob. Question for you. Obamacare, as it's passed, allows for, is it a 3% plus tax on home sales?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's something like that, yeah.
On your profit, okay?
Yeah.
But isn't that generally true? The profits are mostly inflation on your house? So what they're doing is putting tax on the inflation on your house. And I guess, how do you get away with that? I mean, seriously, how do you get away with that?
Well, remember, they passed Obamacare. That was, you know, controlled by the Democrats. Not one Republican vote. Not one Republican vote. So that's what the fight we're having. And so you're talking to the choir here on that. So
Okay, but how come the Republicans aren't pounding that home? I've never heard one Republican come out and say, folks, you're gonna be taxed on the inflation on your house.
well, I don't think it's been said that way, but there's a lot of things said. But you know, the other challenge we have, the media is not on our side.
Right.
No, but the Republicans
I
need to
think
talk.
Well, I think
You see 5 or 6 guys get up and debate and they never comment once.
Yeah, it's for the presidential, yeah.
It doesn't make any difference. This would hit home very hard to people when they realize that they're going to be taxed for a system that's on their inflation on their own home.
Yeah, I think, you know, like I said, I mentioned the iPad issue, that's even worse. Because that's gonna be a bureaucrat in Washington DC telling you if you can get medical care or not. That's even worse. That's what campaigns are about, and so hopefully here till November, you're gonna hear more and more. And you asked what you can do. One thing you can do, you can spread this message, you know, and talk to your neighbors and when you go to church and you go to the store, wherever, and write letters and write letters to the editor. You know what, the Democrats, they're the only ones that seem to write letters to the editor.
Oh, no, not
I'm talking in general terms. Okay. I mean, there's some exceptions, don't get me wrong, but in general terms, you know, the Democrats, you know, it's just unbelievable, because usually
And if you're talking about activists, preaching the choir there, she's the one in this area that got that health care.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand there's a big increase in the estate tax coming in 2013.
Yeah.
Something in one of these bills.
No, what the deal is, the last Congress in December, they were able to extend the so-called Bush tax cuts, okay? And they put it back, I think it was 35% if I remember right. And it goes back to the old law because it expires again at the end of this year. And it'll go to 55%, okay? Plus all the rates except one, the tax brackets all go up. Capital gains goes up to, I can't remember now, 15 to 25 I think it is, and then dividend goes up to, I think it's 35 or 39. I knew this, I've thought about it for a while. And that's not a bill that's in there that changes it. It's gonna happen if we don't pass a bill to not let it happen. It's already current law. And that was done by the Democrats last Congress. So those are some of the issues we're still fighting at later this year. And that's what happened. That's all there. Yeah.
Along with Janie's comment, what can we do? There was a big riot up at the CPAC, right? With the Occupy Wall Street?
There was a lot of protesters out there, yeah.
Yeah, okay, because we gotta somehow combat them too.
Yeah. There's a real good, Stephen Moore, a good conservative guy who writes the editorial for the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if you saw it, last week, he wrote on the Wall Street Journal talking about Obama's being fair, and it was a great editorial. It went down all this stuff that says, is it fair that our kids and our grandkids are paying for a debt that we're racking up? Is it fair that Obama sends his daughters to a private school while the rest of the kids in Washington D.C., it went all through a whole host of things. Is it fair that 10% of Americans paid, whatever it is, 90% of the taxes? A great article. But I think people want to wrap up here, but I always say in closing that, Americans, we deserve better. We deserve to have a government that is accountable, that's open, not going behind closed doors and making secret deals and putting things in. I mean, we ought to be really proud that the House has this policy of no earmarks. Now, earmarks in the total budget, the numbers isn't that big of a problem. It's a bad practice. And here's a bill that no earmarks. 66,371 in the previous bill. We ought to be proud that we've stopped some things. And keep in mind, the Republicans, we control 1/2 or 1/3 of the federal government. And so that's why this election is so important, because I don't even want to think about what would happen if the Senate stays the same and Barack Obama is reelected. Because, just like he's kind of rolling back maybe a little bit on this I know he's not, but the perception out there is he is. But can you imagine if 4 more years when he's not for reelection, what he'll do? And it just blows me away. Yeah. So anyways, we've got to keep the fight up, and we got to stay united. What they're trying to do, and I'm convinced. Some of the things they've been putting out, I almost wonder if it's them to put some of this stuff on the internet and try to divide the Tea Party people and more moderates, and because it really makes you wonder, because that's the best thing for them. If they divide all of us, they'll win. And Barack Obama's, they're talking about $1 billion campaign spending on this campaign, and my gut tells me the guy ought to lose big time. Okay, the last polls out there, he's not losing. It's close.
We don't have any megaphones.
Yeah. So yeah.